when we also wrote our article for the 50 Objects website, because the official report said, as you say, everything's been removed and they had to destroy the monument, we just thought that was that. And in fact, we had no illustration because although there are photographs of it, because the Assistant Secretary of War referred to looking at the photographs and complaining that there were pieces left around and please clean it up, we just thought, okay, it's gone. And so to illustrate the story, actually, David Izu, our photographer, went to Home Depot, bought a bag of cement, and dumped it on a piece of paper because it was like, okay, that's the demolished monument.
Yeah.
Um, so I got an email from Jeff Burton saying, um, subject line, Wakasa Monument found. I didn't even know what that meant. And then when I read it, I just was stunned.
I, Nancy, I think we were stunned when we found it. As I said, we expected a few very small remnants of concrete or some cobbles or something. Um, the fact that they had, and when we found it, we had no idea how big it really was. We could see just the smallest part of it level with the surface. It was not at all protruding from the surface. So
So how did you know that was it?
your map, it was because of your map. It was close enough, and it was unusual enough that there aren't those kinds of rocks naturally occurring in that area. It's mostly sands and silts. It was part of the old lake bed of Lake Bonneville, so there's not a lot of large rocks that occur naturally there.
So can you take us through a step-by-step kind of process of how archaeologists approach a site like this? Like, I guess you started at Guard Tower 8 footings, but how would you even know where to begin? Are the footings there?
The footings at Guard Tower 8 are still there. They were pulled out of the ground. Have you seen any of those guard tower footings? They're like an iceberg. They have a small square, nicely formed piece of concrete that the guard tower leg was attached to. But underground, they're huge because they have to support an awful lot of tension, torque that the guard tower might put on it because it's up on, it's raised above the ground. So they they pulled them, but they couldn't really take them anywhere. I think it'd be hard enough to pull them. So they're lying around. They probably took them out to do some work on the ditch that's there or to do some road work. Maybe they pulled them out when they had a large machine. It would not be easy to move those. So they weren't moved very far. And you can kind of tell from there are 3 guard tower foundations at Topaz that are still in place. So you can tell by looking at those where they were situated in relation to the security fence. So
So can you tell us how, what do you use? What equipment do you use? What kinds of expert equipment and what do you use to measure out?
it's kind of low tech, I guess. It's a tape, a 300-foot tape, and we started with we attached it to the ground with a chaining pin. It's like a big sewing pin, only you can stick it into the ground through one end of the tape, and then you pull the tape out 300 feet, mark it, and then do that again and again and again because it was so far. So I guess the main tool is your eyes because you're just on the lookout for something that looks a little different. Maybe slight change in vegetation. Like I said, we were hoping for a piece of concrete or a cobble or something. Maybe some artifacts that had been placed there in his memory. So once we got too close to the distance indicated on the map that you found, then we started looking very closely to see. But it was such a big stone, we didn't have to look too hard.
What did you feel when you saw it?
I was overwhelmed. I just thought, oh my God, this is it. This is where Mr. Wakasa died, or close to it. And this is where his friends put up a monument. And I'm sorry, it makes me emotional just to think about all that. I think there's a power in being at the spot where something happened. And with that stone in place, we felt like we were there. It we were there back 78 years ago when it happened. So yeah, we it was kind of overwhelming. I know you can't think about Mr. Wakasa without thinking of all the implications of what that meant for people who were interned, incarcerated at Topaz, to be walking your dog uh, and be shot. 2020 was to me the summer of Black Lives Matter. So this was another case of somebody being the wrong ethnicity or race, just minding their own business. I'll tell you what else I thought. I thought that is a big rock. Even though we didn't know how big it was, we thought that is such a big rock. The people who put that monument up, they wanted Mr. Wakasa to be remembered. They wanted his death to be memorialized. And so it wasn't just a few cobbles put together. It was a real effort, I think. The fact that they had used such a big rock in the monument, and then that they had found a way to leave it there when the administration and the military were telling them, get rid of it, it's inappropriate. It suggests that it was not right for the military to murder somebody there. So I think that was really impressive. I guess we felt obligated to tell that story. It's not our story. It's Mr. Wakasa's story.
It's kind of an amazing thought that these landscapers hauled this. Do you have any idea of how they did that? How it's said to be about 1,000 pounds. We don't know
Yeah,
for.
isn't that amazing? I mean, and especially if I think one of the letters said there were two landscapers responsible, but they must have had help. And that's entirely possible that there was a lot of people that were involved. But have you seen the way Japanese gardeners move big rocks with sometimes with a tripod and also with like rolling, I don't know what you call them, like a rolling things, like you could put like lots of round logs in front of it, push it onto it, and then pick up the logs behind it and move them over. And so it's almost like a railroad sort of thing, a conveyor belt. That's what they use nowadays, is a piece of a conveyor belt from a factory. And so they probably had, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a Japanese gardener, but I've seen them work, and it's fascinating to see how they can move stones that are so large. And then to raise them, what I've seen is erecting a tripod with pulleys so that, it could be just three long poles with a pulley centered in it. And then with that, you can tie ropes or something around the stone and then set it up the way you want.
You
Of
could lift
course,
1,000 pound stone with using that method.
yes, yes. The as long as your poles are strong enough, the and your wraps, your ropes, your ties, and your pulley. But if they're landscapers, they probably had access to that equipment, because at Topaz there is, they're not as large, but there are some decorative rocks imported near the Buddhist church. And so those were probably moved with permission from the WRA. And so I'm guessing that they had that equipment.
It's really interesting to think. Did they go into the mountains and find this stone, or did they have it in their inventory? Or I mean, that's something, unless we find diaries or something, we won't
Yeah.
be able to know.